All right. Well, I think we'll get started. Welcome, everyone, to the November 2024 Colorado Hydrogen Network monthly meeting. And you can see the agenda we've got here. We've got a couple of presentations, both of which I'm really, I hate to say excited. Don't you think that's funny when people say excited? But I'm anxious and interested to hear what uh, both of these companies can tell us about what they're doing. Going to talk a little bit about helium and hydrogen conference that's coming up. It's going to be in Denver, so that's an opportunity for a lot of us to attend something like this where we may not usually be able to travel. Um, and kind of sticking with that theme of geologic hydrogen and helium, I also want to just talk about a little bit of the geologic hydrogen that's in the news. And then I want to go over again some ideas for Colorado Hydrogen Day 2025. And I'm going to do something I've never done before with Zoom is have a little poll during the meeting, give you all a chance for some audience participation. So I'm going to hit mute all, but I'm going to come back to you, Terrence, if I can find you here, and I'm going to unmute you. Whoops, come on. Oh, see if you can unmute yourself. I don't know why I can't find the button to do that, but I do want to introduce Terrence Lovett, who had a booth at our Hydrogen Day on October 6th. And I was really interested to hear what Terrence is doing with his company. It's pronounced Bow Energies. Is that right, Terrence?
Yes.
Yeah. And I wasn't looking at the website. I wasn't too sure what to say about your company. I know you've got something called a multi-powered load balancer, and maybe that's not the focus of things. But Terrence, I'm going to stop sharing and let you go ahead and share and tell us all about Bow Energies.
I can get that up for you. All right. You can see it okay?
Yeah, you got it.
See if I can probably see if I can go from here. All right. Everybody see that just fine?
Yeah, we got it.
All right. Okay. My name's Terrence Lovett of Bow Energy's power company. We build renewable energy. We're a Colorado company. I am an inventor. I invented the platform that I'm about to show you when I was in the military in the jungles of Panama. And so I was dreaming of a soldier's oasis, a nice dry place to sleep, away from the jungle, and a way to power it. And so that's where the idea comes from. I've been developing it since 1993, 1994, and I've attempted to apply it here and there. And it wasn't until 2020 that things began to start with us because it was in, I believe, in 2020 is it finally became legal in Colorado to do DERs. And so it became legal in the US in 2018, I think with FERC 2.2.2, the Federal Energy Regulation Commission. So I thought it was time to get started. Um, so we are renewable energy through the construction process. We serve urban, suburban, and rural remote areas. We can pretty much go anywhere. And we're a distributed energy resource, a DER proper. Uh, Let me see something, see if I can change my setting here. Can you guys still see my screen without my notes?
Well, we see right now, Terrence, a very small version of the presentation, another one off to the right, and then your slides across the bottom.
Okay, I can't do that then. All right, I'll just have to wing it. All right. Okay. Let's see if I can do it again. All right. So what we do is we integrate into established processes. We found that when we first started, we were always looking at some sort of exception or variance, especially for height. And as I did my research, I found that one of the best ways to build a business is to build it so that it already follows the rules instead of attempting to make new rules for myself or get exceptions. We use space efficiently. We can be applied to all environments. Uh, we are built for safety. We adhere to local codes, especially gas codes or spatial codes between electrical equipment and water. We're built to address the NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard, because we've had several projects. We've seen several projects go awry and get canceled because of not in my backyard syndrome. It became a big problem early on. And we treat it as a plan instead of a product or a service. We found that most of the product investors or service investors, the product investors are very strong in going after new things, but they want them to be throwawayable. They want them to be disposable or cheap. So they're always rushing to the bottom. And so that didn't suit us. And also, as a service, it would just cost too much. And so we had to look at other ways of attempting to sell our service. So our core concepts kind of defy conventional assessments, but we do build it on kind of a classical business model, which means we use readily available resources and they have to be abundant in supply so that we can get them cheaply. So those are the kind of our foundations. We try to raise the standard of renewable energy and try to erase the stigma that it's only for the daytime and you can't use it at night. So we were already into applying multiple sources of renewable together. So we found that most people were like, can you do solar? Yes. Or can you do wind? Yes. And now finally they're saying, let's do a combination of solar plus wind. Well, we're years ago, we were already doing combinations of solar plus wind, plus battery, plus natural gas. So we're always plussing, as well as we're a charge plus battery system, which means the battery always takes the load. So everything we do, the battery's doing the work, not the solar or the wind or any kind of input. And so that's our first efficiency. And I came out of the communications industry. That's what I trained for in the military. So I spent about 30 years in satellite fiber and television automation. So I'm very familiar with user interfaces and building automation and building machine control systems. So that was kind of what I did for 30 years. And so I kept doing that through these processes. So the pictures you're going to see are just indications of what we're about to do. So they're just setups. They don't apply to the information I'm going to give you here. So we build a multi-powered load balancer. It's a platform, a structure, a building, which incorporates solar, wind, hydrogen, hydro, and batteries. It's a pump storage system, modified small pump storage systems. Excuse me. And so it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've worked it with both uh, propane or natural gas, and also we can work it with hydrogen fuel cell setups. So we try to fit in where we can fit in, especially in our earlier days, and that was mostly propane for remote uses way out in the middle of nowhere. We have a small footprint. It's actually a 15 by 15 column. And then if you put it inside its own building, it's a 25 feet by 25 feet column finished construction. So our basic principle is when the sun shines, we charge the pump battery. When the wind blows, we charge the pump battery. And when the sun doesn't shine and wind doesn't blow, we use fuel to charge the pump battery, 24 hours of operations. And if we're using hydrogen, 100% emissions free. So right now, our big project that we're pushing for, and the reason why we were at the Hydrogen Day, is that we've developed a green hydrogen of sorts, or a hydrogen fuel station that is a distributed hydrogen production. So instead of a central production where it's a hub and spoke, we developed something that can basically produce hydrogen, store it, and dispense it all in one spot. And our only input, or our input is, of course, a natural gas or hydrogen, and also wastewater. So we built it on wastewater. So wastewater in the United States is extremely available. You can produce it at, you can get it anywhere where there's a water treatment system. And we have about 16,500 water treatment systems across the United States of America. So we call ourselves overbuilders. And so we build upon other systems that we know are reliable. We know we can go back over and over again, that are extremely cheap, and that will not fail us easily. And so the reason why we pitched California, the station, is primarily because they're failing. It's a car crash out there. The oil and gas companies are really failing to serve fuel cell electric vehicles across the state. They cannot serve the, commercial fleet that's coming online right now. So even the commercial fleet is having to develop their own gas stations, their own remote gas stations, just to deploy, because the local stations, it's like 43 of them right now, and they have a whole bunch of them in operation, or basically in planning or in construction. They're just not doing the job. They run out of gas a lot. They break a lot. They have very much disappointed California fuel cell electric vehicle owners. So we figure it's an opportunity for us to come in and stake a claim in that market, and actually have a market of over 20,000 fuel cell electric vehicles on the road who are looking for reliable fuel. And our different model can supply that reliable fuel through redundancy and excellent service. So just to give you an idea of what we've done in the past and who we are and how we do things, I'm going to show you some of our various quotes for some of the people that we've attempted to work with. So RTD had some land at I-25 and 225. It used to be land that they were going to put a train line in to Aurora down that line, and they decided not to, and they started to sell it off about 3, 4 years ago. And so we pitched them a what basically a development for, or I guess you can call it disabled people, where we would they're right across the freeway, right down the street from the RTD station, with very much flat plains where they could easily roll down. So we were thinking about people who were always going to be taking RTD or some sort of public transportation instead of driving themselves, and having a place where they can have families and easy access to an RTD station. An RTD station is to your left and across the freeway. And so we were going to put some homes there, and these platforms are backup power for these homes. So we're thinking in terms of people who have medical conditions, who would be using RTD a lot, and they would need housing that catered to that. So that was one of the ideas we pitched about a year and a half ago. 30th and Meek takes us back a little further to 22. We had a partnership with our with Friends Compass Construction. They were a up and coming construction company here locally. The new owner who bought the company really loved green buildings, and he was trying to do a green multifamily up off of 38th and Mead. And so we planned a structure that, again, has a backup power system, where we were going to support what we call critical family infrastructure, like basically natural gas pilot systems for their heating and cooling fan, HVAC fan, and things like that. Stuff like that would stay on, and they'd have what's called green plugs, one or two plugs in the house, in each household, that would stay on during power outages. So we use renewable energy as a way to garner resources from the government that we normally wouldn't qualify for with just normal multifamily. So there's a lot of resources with all of the different bills that have come out IRA 2022 and others where renewable energy can really help you build. A 20, 30% return for projects. So that's what the idea was. Add renewable energy to a housing project and help with the funding of it. This was at Pottsburg. It's a dairy farm that they were thinking of developing. This was one of our pitches to add renewable energy backup power to it. It was supposed to be a senior living area way up north and east of Fort Collins. Here's a Florida development. Same thing. Backup power in Miami. We met some people in Miami who were very concerned with backup power in Miami because they anticipated the storms would get larger. And so they were absolutely right. The storms have absolutely gotten larger down there. Alamosa is a green lots project. So that's our one of our touchstones where we put a green lot out for sale near a place where it's attraction. So this was down by the sand dunes, and there's a pretty strong community worldwide of people who love to go to places and play in the sand. They do dune buggies and races and dirt biking down this huge community. And Alamosa, if you've never been to the area, it is surrounded by mountains, so it's beautiful. So we were planning on selling lots out there that would be green lots, purely powered by renewable energy, our platform out there, wired to the different lots for they could build on the lot or they could use it as a camper or an annual thing, a drop or a small home or trailer on it or something like that. And it'd be completely powered by our platforms. So that's kind of who we are. We attempt to put renewable energy to work in places where people normally believe it cannot work because of space, because of cost, because of all these different things. And we build business models to make them work. So our return on investment for our hydrogen station is 5 to 7 years. And if we were able to really get that big payout, which is, I'm not sure if it's likely anymore with uh, yeah, Trump was elected, but it's still possible that he might continue those programs. We'd be able to get something like $4 million back on a $15 million project using the IRA 2222 and I can show you the different programs they're talking about. But it's quite a bit of money, and it makes various projects where we're using expensive renewable energy viable because we can maintain it over the long term. That's Born Energy's power company.
All right, thanks, Terrence. Very interesting. We're going to open it up for questions, and maybe just to break the ice, I'll start out with one. So, Terrence, early on, you mentioned energy storage is done with some, you called it a pumped system. And because of the size of the system, I assume that's not pumped hydro. You don't have lakes set up. Is it pumped compressed air, or what? How does that
It
work?
is it is pumped hydro, but it's
Oh,
only about 10,000 gallons.
oh,
So we apply it in a building setting in a 15 by 15 tower. And we can generate up to 60 kilowatts like that. With the development of new generators for wind, you can develop a wind, I call them a torque mix. It's called uh, it's where with wind turbines, you can move them with your hand and have almost no torque. And then they build them also with torque in them so that you can run up your electricity at low RPMs. So it's a low PR RPM and low torque wind turbine that we use to be able to generate a decent amount of energy. And just like I said, we're a charge plus battery system. So we use that whole platform just to charge a huge battery pack. And
okay. So
battery
you've got
pack
to,
does the
yeah,
work.
that's right. You mentioned batteries for energy storage too. And I suppose you could use hydrogen. That's pretty inefficient to use an electrolyzer and store it and then reconvert it with a fuel cell.
Yeah, we always the hydrolyzer is pretty much um, the replacement for natural gas when we're charging the pump, and the pump is not that large, and so it's not a machine system where you can use that I forget the name of the equation, how much power is in, comes out. It's more like a domino system
Mhm.
where you're pushing something that then has heavy weight and it falls. It's more like what you see in the engineering of a manufacturing plant than it is like a direct in, direct out system. So that's the way we make it work.
All right. Well, who else has some questions or comments? Don't be shy, everybody. Well, I will say, Terrence, when you've got some news, maybe a new program or something like that, we want to have you back so you can, tell us how that program actually works out, some of the details on that.
We've been raising funds with VCs. It's been in and out. We've got about four or five who are keep me informed, but they've been pretty tight with the whole rates fight, raising and lowering rates. And I think a lot of them are stuck in a lot of commercial real estate that's not doing so well.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been hearing.
All right. Well, Frank
Someone's hands
Zacharo's,
up there.
he got his hand up. Frank, how are things out in New York?
Well, we need rain, and but other than that, it's been a nice fall so far and quite busy. So thanks for hosting again, Brian. You do a great job. I enjoyed the presentation. I was particularly interested in the kinds of grants that you may have been successful in getting as it relates to affordable housing and the renewable energy element. In other words, was there
Mhm.
anything in particular that jumped out? I know the tax credits and everything else with IRA are there, and they may or may not, stick. Hopefully they will. But I'm just curious if there was anything in particular that you found related to the affordable housing element of your business plan that created a lot of value and potentially offset for these projects.
Uh, is it 157D? I'm trying to remember section 157D, something 757D. Yeah. But I'll have to look it up for you. That does apply to us, and we do have those kinds of numbers broken out to be able to use them. However, we did find that our affordable housing here in Denver, we hadn't pitched anyone else here in Denver, and most of the real estate, commercial and multifamily real estate developers are renewable energy is still pretty far from them. They're not thinking about it at all. It's not a part of most conversations when we're talking about housing and talking about developing homes. So we did speak with them, and they were like, "That's just so far out." And we did pitch them on what is it? Where they give you PACE C-PACE or PACE financing. So we're fully qualified for PACE financing for new developments and things like that. But they weren't really ready. But I think it's 157D or and PACE financing. We can use those, and we're hoping that industry starts to look at adding renewable energy more often as a way to make some of those projects more viable more
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're running into some of those issues here where 100% affordable housing just doesn't pass muster financially. So if you can justify more renewable aspects, sustainable material aspects, and be subsidized, that might bridge that gap. But thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Other questions? Nobody? Everybody's pretty satisfied with that. Okay, well, we may have a few more minutes at the end, so if you think of a question as we go, you can put it in the chat, or we could take some questions at the end. So I'm going to go back to my slides here for just a second and introduce Jim Corboy, who's with Element One Energy. And Jim, so glad to finally have you here. Jim and I have been trying to do this for, golly, Jim, has it been 8 months or something like that, I think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But Jim, before I turn it over to you, I did want to just kind of clarify for everybody. There's quite a few companies out there named Element One, and this isn't poking at anybody about it, but we're talking about Element One Energy. I'm saying electrolyzers, but Jim, it may be a little broader than that. But
Right.
that company's in Colorado Springs. Some of you may be familiar with the other Element One, which is up in Boulder, which does hydrogen detectors and sensors. But beside that, there's an Element One Technologies out in Salt Lake City, and an Element Numeral One who does hydrogen and EV charging stations. So hopefully that cuts through a little bit of the confusion to what's in a name, right? And as Shakespeare said. But
Right.
Jim, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, let me see if I can make this work. Can you see it now?
Not yet. Not yet. No.
Hmm.
Did you hit the little green button on the bottom that says share?
Yes, the green arrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to select the right window out of the thing.
Um, well, I'm at a loss here. Oh,
So when you hit share, you should get a pop-up that says either screens, documents, or advanced. If you go with screens, you may have to scroll down to look for the screen that has your slides.
okay.
Oh, wait, wait. Something's coming through there. We got it.
There we got it. Okay. Well, thank you. And as you say, it's been a long time. We've been talking about this, and um, I was going to discuss what you used in the introduction. There are many Element One energies. With that said, we are in the process of kicking around new name. We will be changing the name of our company sometime soon to avoid the confusion. We were at the Houston show in June, at the NRG Center in June, and we were 1 aisle away from the Element One out of Bend, Oregon. And people would show up at our booth for an appointment. And so it was very confusing. So we are taking care of that. We are headquartered in Colorado Springs. The company was envisioned about 5 or 6 years ago by the two founders, and then it was became a Delaware limited liability company in mid 2021. It has been totally funded by the two founders, the founding partners, and revenues. There's no debt, there's no outside financing, and at this point, we are seeking project financing for various projects, but we are really not in a position yet of wanting to really attract any outside private equity capital. Um, our primary business is design, manufacturing, fabrication of alkaline electrolyzers. What you see in this slide is a 250 kilowatt unit, and it with three partner units will end up in a project in suburban Houston, Texas, and that will be primarily for the mobility market. We design them for, as this next slide shows, 250 kilowatts up to 5 megawatts. In addition to the Houston project, we are building one for the U.S. Air Force, which will be deployed at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii. And we are building one for deployment in the United Kingdom. We're negotiating some other European area projects, but I must say our vision is really to be a very proactive member of the Colorado hydrogen community. We were opportunistic early on in receiving some of these purchase orders for non-Colorado, but our focus we need and we want it to be Colorado. We will probably never catch up to California, but as Terrence pointed out, California has had a lot of issues, particularly with their hydrogen refueling stations. We want to change that. We want to be focused here in Colorado. Many of you on the call know the difference between alkaline and PEM technology. It's both electrolysis. These slides are not real easy probably to see from a distance, but the main point that I want to make here is that alkaline is materially less expensive CapEx than PEM technology. But this study came out of Europe. The Tractable study came out of Europe in late 2023, and you'll see by the time we get to 2025, that gap will be substantially narrowed. So even though we are manufacturing alkaline, we are anxious to also deploy PEM when that makes more sense, and we're negotiating with a major PEM manufacturer at this point in time. Stack replacement costs, pretty much the same picture. Now there is a significant gap between alkaline and proton exchange membrane, but that gap will narrow to nearly parity. In addition to alkaline technology electrolyzers, we are a strong proponent of solid state hydrogen using metal hydrides. We are one of the few in the country. There are a lot of differences between metal hydride and batteries or pumped hydro for various storage. The advantages of metal hydride is very low pressure. We can charge and discharge at room temperatures. There's very high density, and it is something that our engineering scientific team is working on pretty much daily in blending the various forms of the metal hydride. For those not familiar, it has the consistency of fine sand. And our team is working on various combinations. 10 liters up to 910 liters. You'll see down in the lower right-hand corner, there are 12 or so of those canisters at the International Space Station, which we believe are used when there are spacewalks. We also have designed a large metal hydride system here, and the purpose of this slide is primarily to demonstrate that it's the form factor. It can be any form. It can be used for mobility for Class 7, Class 8 trucks. It can be used in stationary storage, and we are working on various forms of how we would really build these systems in various form factors. Again, this tough to read this slide, but basically it's comparing lithium ion, high pressure, and metal hydride storage. I'd be happy to share those numbers with anyone who might have an interest. What differentiates our company is complete design, engineering, manufacturing, and fabrication in-house at our facility in Colorado Springs. There are two adjacent 17,000 square foot facilities. We have multiple large capacity CNC machines, a clean room, which is shown in the bottom slide. It's not used at the moment as a clean room, but it is set up for that kind of activity. We have two very large hydrothermal reactors, which are used to generate our own catalyst. And you'll see in terms of comparable size, see the door in the background. That's not a trick photographed, but it's a very large piece of equipment. Again, pictures of bipolar plate manufacturing, laser, structural fabrication and welding. It's all really in shop. We have about 15 engineers and about I think about 25 people working on the shop floors of the two co-located facilities. We are recently certified ASME Section 8 Divisions 1 and 2, which means we are certified for high pressure compression up to 10,000 psi for storage in both the shop and the field, and this shows our various certifications. We've had a lot of experience in engineering services for the above ground cryogenic storage. So we're experienced in both gaseous, liquid, solid state, all forms of storage, which of course will continue to be critically important as we move more into the mobility market. Again, this just talks about our various engineering services at the company. Our co-founder, Nadi Osmat, is our lead engineer, and he's done a lot of the work in the cryogenic double wall spheres and plant design and multiple other activities. With that, thank you. Open for questions, non-technical, please, because I'm a corporate finance guy. I notice we got Alexi and Buford and John on the call, so hope they feel free to jump in on any technical questions.
All right, thanks, Jim. All right, well, let's take some questions here. We got plenty of time, so don't be shy.
Hello, Brian, Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Jim, or the team from Element One. One of the advantages of alkaline electrolyzers tend to be they do not require the same high purity water that is required for PEM electrolyzers. Is that true for your design? And can you give me some idea of what level or purity of water is required for your alkaline electrolyzers?
We require super purified water. I am not familiar with the comparable with PEM electrolysis. I can certainly follow up and get clarification on that. But our systems are the electrolyzer, the balance of plant, and the purification. We do all that. We build all of that componentry in-house.
Okay, that's impressive. So even the water treatment, preparing the water to enter your electrolyzer, you guys are building that as well.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Well, thanks, Kurt, for the question. I think a lot of people on the call probably don't know you. Would you like to just introduce yourself? I see you're with Mettler, which is not a company I'm familiar with either. So let us know a little bit about you.
Well, hello, everybody. I've been kind of lurking on these calls for over a year now. And one of these days, I'll probably make a presentation. But I actually work for Mettler Toledo. And my guess is there's a fair amount of Mettler equipment in Jim's laboratory down there at Element One. We also sell quite a range of water and gas analytic products that are used in electrolyzer and hydrogen production. We work with some of the biggest hydrogen electrolyzer companies around the world, really more on the balance of the plant side. But obviously, as Jim indicated, both for alkaline and PEM electrolyzers, there's some fairly stringent water requirements
Yeah.
for the feed water going into the electrolyzer to produce good, high quality hydrogen out the other end and also ensure long life to your electrolyzer. So we do a lot of work in that area. I also attend quite a few hydrogen related conferences. I was recently at the International Water Conference in Las Vegas earlier this month, and there were several presentations around hydrogen and the future of hydrogen, but all with kind of a water related hook to it. However, we did get a chance to tour Air Liquide's um, methane stripping hydrogen generation plant, which is north of Las Vegas, and kind of tying it to Terrence's presentation and California in particular. Almost 100% of the hydrogen they're producing north of Las Vegas gets loaded into trucks 24 hours a day under
Yep.
high pressure. And those trucks drive to California to then supply hydrogen to the fuel cell refueling stations that are used for buses and cars and things like that. So, not quite green hydrogen, but it was a real interesting plant tour, and I was happy to be a part of that and could share some information about that at some point in the future as well.
Well, thanks, Kirk. We'd love to have you back on sometime to do a presentation. Maybe you and I will talk about that offline. And Kirk, where are you? Are you in Colorado? No.
Yeah, I'm in Lakewood.
Oh, you are. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, don't feel like you're lurking. I mean, this is open to everybody, and we're here to try to just help the whole group of stakeholders be acquainted with each other, know what's going on, make connections, and all those things. So, always glad to have everybody attending.
Yeah, Kirk, and if you want to send me an email, I'll follow up on the water quality question.
Oh, okay. That's great. Um, yeah, I'll do that after we finish it.
Good.
All right, other people, we got plenty of time for questions, so please don't be shy.
Yeah, I guess I just had a question for you, Jim. I guess it wasn't clear from the presentation. Are you guys, um, do you hold proprietary ownership over the electrolyzers that you're producing, or are you kind of assembling and packaging up equipment from various other
No,
original equipment manufacturers?
uh, uh, we don't make computer screens. We don't make some of the valves and the gauges, but all of the construction is done in-house in Colorado Springs. We cut the bipolar plates. We plate them with nickel. We do all of that in-house. Welding. Um, we 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 make everything in-house. We don't have any patents and probably don't aspire to have any proprietary knowledge. Yes, patents probably not. But anyway, we're not an aggregator. We're a fully integrated manufacturer.
And that would be the case for the PEM electrolyzers as well?
Well, the PEM electrolyzers, we do not intend to be in the PEM manufacturing business ourselves, but rather when there are instances where PEM makes more sense than alkaline, we want to be of service, frankly, to the client. And so we are now in early negotiations with a major PEM manufacturer.
Thanks, Jim. I thought of a question too. I kind of detected that maybe you have one size electrolyzer stack and then you just add stacks. Is that
Yeah.
true, or do you make different sizes of stacks?
250 kilowatt stacks collected together. Our project in Houston, the project going to Ickham Air Force Base will be 1 megawatt. So that'll be 4 250 kilowatt units. The one that I had on one of the early screens, that's a 250 kilowatt.
Okay. And so a lot of your systems are just you just add more stacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
No, that makes sense because then you can optimize your manufacturing and you know
Right.
quantity savings and things like that. Jim, I think that it would make a fascinating field trip for us to have a group of the stakeholders from Colorado Hydrogen Network come down and see your facility. It might be a little tricky to think of a time. Colorado Springs, hour and a half, hour or so south of Denver. So for people to do it in the evening gets a little bit sporty
Yeah.
trying to drive back. But think about that. Think if you want to host maybe a little plant tour or something like that sometime.
We would be very interested in that. As you know, 2 days following your event here, we hosted the Drive Clean Colorado at our facility on National Hydrogen Day. We're going to talk about that later. But we had about 25 people on site. Buford was there and
Yep.
spoke. And I think about 25 people joined by Zoom. So we love to show it off.
Yeah, let's you offline. You and I will talk about that, and we'll see if we could set up. I don't know, maybe early happy hour or something like that for folks to walk around, and then they wouldn't get back to Denver or even back to Fort Collins or wherever they're coming from just too
Yeah.
terribly late. But probably a
Yeah.
little bit easier than trying to do it midday where everybody's trying to work and those kind of things.
Right.
But
That'd be
yeah,
great.
it
Yeah.
sounds like it's a great facility, man. 17,000 square foot. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, other questions? Oh, by the way, I wanted Mike Grimwade. Thanks for your question. Mike is with Black and Veatch, and
Oh,
Mike was super helpful on our Hydrogen Day. Just a real workhorse out there with me, just doing everything we needed to do to keep that event going. So thanks again, Mike, for doing that.
Happy to help.
Yeah, glad to have you. And Mike may be joining me for the geologic event that's happening in April. We're going to talk about here in just a minute too. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, Mike, because I know you hadn't really quite committed. But um, anyway, Mike's a great volunteer. Is really helping out a lot, and I appreciate it.
I
Other
have
questions?
another question if we got time.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Kirk.
So, Jim, is your hydrogen output at high pressure or ambient pressure? And then is the intent to always convert it to this solid form of hydrogen?
uh, it is at relatively high pressure. It's not to convert it into the metal hydride storage so much. Obviously, one of the early target markets is the mobility market, Class 7, Class 8 trucks, et cetera, transit districts. But we also would hope that we would get to a point where we would reach a price point that we could serve the industry, the industrial market, cement, um, data centers, steel, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, one trend that I'm seeing is more and more electrolyzer manufacturers are trying to move up to higher and higher pressures because that reduces the cost of the hydrogen compression stage that often can be quite expensive if you have large scale compressors. So if you design an electrolyzer that outputs in higher pressure, then that alleviates some of the infrastructure costs downstream where you got to then pressurize up that gas. So, are you seeing that trend? Is that something you guys are looking into? Is increasing the output pressure of your electrolyzer to minimize the compressor cost downstream?
Yes, we are looking at that. And again, I don't have the technical uh, uh, experience to really respond in any level of detail on the call, but I can certainly follow up with that as well, Kirk.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
just kind of curious on that one. That's a trend we're seeing, and it actually makes it creates a lot of other challenges when you ramp up the pressure level in the electrolyzer itself.
Right.
That increases some costs and some complexity, but then it really does has a significant savings downstream.
Right.
Another trend I don't know if you're looking at is kind of a hybrid. They call them AEM, so they're alkaline, membrane based, so they're
Yeah.
kind of a blend between
Yes.
a PEM, but operate with alkaline electrolytes. Is that what's encouraging about that is the higher currency density that you can operate these electrolyzers at.
Yeah, an Apter is it is a name that's prominent in that business, a German company with presence here in Colorado, and other parts of the country. Um, as a general comment, and again, Buford or John, if you have any other comments, alkaline is better suited for base load, and the AEM, our understanding is that's better to satisfy peak load. And so there's been some conversation for a hybrid uh, system.
All right.
Yeah, that's certainly an advantage of PEM electrolyzers is they can ramp up and ramp down
Yes,
much more flexibility, have a lot more flexibility as the power input, say from a solar panel or wind arrays or something
right,
like that, ramps up and
right.
down.
That's true.
All right. Well, Kirk, thanks again. Any other questions or comments? I will add one other thought or maybe a question here. Jim, it looked like you had said there were some of the hydride cylinders that actually were being used in space applications. I think you said the International Space Station, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I will just kind of add my own thoughts on that. Having worked for a defense contractor for 36 years, there's an awful lot of testing and standards and hoops you have to jump through for um, military applications and even more so for space. So kudos, I would say, to Element One for getting those certifications. And I think that can give the rest of us kind of an assurance that you guys know you have some good chops, I guess, to put it that way.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's kind. Yes, thank you.
All
Yep.
right.
Hey Jim, one question I had, and I had to step out real quick. So if you covered it, I apologize. But one of the things that kind of surprised me when we met with you guys down there was your targeted lead times for the electrolyzers. Can you talk about what you guys are targeting for that?
We're targeting 6 months at this point. We're building 3 systems now, each in generally in the, we're building several 250 kilowatt units. So we're looking 6 months.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive from what we're hearing in the rest of the industry. So congrats on that one.
Right. And the other advantage I will say to anybody is by building them everything in-house, we think it not only improves quality assurance, but our price is pretty competitive. And unlike a lot of the competition, we actually publish a price list. We have a matrix for if you want 1 unit or 2 or 5 or it's it's out there.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Buford. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, Jim, thank you again. And you and I will talk offline about maybe some kind of an event down there or tour.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. And so, Jim, if you could stop sharing, if you hover down lower, I think something will light up says stop share.
Um,
I don't know if there's any way for me to kick you off.
I wish there were. Um, I don't know how to
You
stop.
don't use Zoom a lot, do you?
I don't, we, Natty and our guys are all wrapped up with Google Google Meet,
or Teams. Yeah, Microsoft Teams
or
probably.
Teams. Yeah.
It's up in
Um,
the middle.
How's that?
It's up in the middle.
what's in the middle? Yeah,
Yeah, it's a bar. It hangs up in the middle.
let me see if I can. Um, ooh, I'm going to try something here, and I hope it doesn't kick me off. No, that didn't work. Does anybody know how I can force that?
Hey
I,
Brian, it's Brendan. If
yeah.
you try to share, I think it'll start sharing your screen.
Oh, all right. Okay. Thank you, Brendan. Had never had that issue before. So, all right. I'm going back to my share. Sorry, everybody, for that little hiccup there. So, all right. You should see my screen.
Yes.
And there is a conference coming up, kind of interesting conference. It's called the Helium and Hydrogen Conference. It's put on by the Rocky Mountain Association of Geologists. It's going to happen over 2 days, April 9th and 10th. They'll be in Denver. There'll be a series of lectures as well as an exhibit hall. And Colorado Hydrogen Network is going to participate. We're going to have a booth at that. And I've submitted an abstract for a presentation. A lot of their presentations are fairly technical and kind of centered around geology, but I thought it would be good to talk about some of the business aspects. And so I've labeled it Building the Hydrogen Market. And so don't know yet if they'll select me, but hopefully they will. Um, there, you can get more information. There's still, they don't have an agenda out yet or anything, but it's at RMAG, which is the Rocky Mountain Association of Geologists, of course, .org. So watch for that. This is really important because geology is probably going to be the lowest cost source of hydrogen that we're going to find. It's certainly cheaper than electrolysis. Now, of course, the catch is you've got to move it either by truck or rail or pipeline. Um, but still, it should be low enough cost that that will work out. So some of you probably been seeing some of the news stories about geologic hydrogen, specifically natural hydrogen. And this is a map of this so-called mid-continental rift. And if you look at this, the bottom left corner of the picture here, you can see it really covers Kansas. State lines are a little bit hard to see here. You'll recall that several years ago, I visited a well that was actually in Nebraska, and talk about that in a second. But there was just a story just a couple days ago on Bloomberg. They said hydrogen wildcatters are betting big on Kansas to strike it rich. So apparently, there's about 50 hydrogen prospectors out there trying to see what kind of yield or depth and things like that this mid-continental rift's going to have. Some of these may need development. They may need to be either fractured to free the hydrogen, or there may be some water injection, which causes the hydrogen to be generated. But interesting thing to follow. Coloma, that company, who I should get on the meeting here, or maybe do a podcast with them, has raised over $300 million. So there's a lot of believers out there in this. Fortescue, they've got a presence now. Their hydrogen center that's going in near NREL in Golden. They recently spent $22 million to buy a 40% stake in Hytera. And this is what I was referring to earlier is Vyacheslav Zagonek, who actually stepped down as CEO of his Denver-based natural hydrogen energy company, has that well out in Nebraska. I visited it. They're not saying what the output of that is right now, but they have said it's 11,000 feet deep. You can go to that podcast if you want to hear that interview. The plan with that hydrogen is to make green ammonia out of it because being in Nebraska, there's a lot of demand for ammonia as fertilizer there. And then, of course, Jeff Ellis, who's a geologist with U.S. Geological Survey, as well as a professor at School of Mines, is cited all the time as being at the forefront of this geologic hydrogen work. And I did a podcast with him um, February 9th of 2024. So definitely something to watch. Again, it takes moving of the hydrogen, which may or may not be expensive. I don't know, Jim Corboy, maybe you can sell some hydride cylinders to help move that along. We'll have to see.
Yeah, yeah.
The other form of geologic hydrogen, if I can get you to think about it that way, is using old petroleum wells. And we've gone over this many, many times, and you've all probably even seen this particular graphic here, but there's two ways to do that. You can use the process that Proton Technologies out of Calgary has to inject oxygen into the well. Hydrogen is formed, and then you bring pure hydrogen out. They claim 4 nines of purity through a palladium filter. The other is a biological method where you put microbes, bugs down into the oil, and they munch on the oil and release hydrogen. I met the lady who's a technical officer with a company called Gold Hydrogen at the Rocky Mountain Retreat that SARAD had up in Boulder at the end of September. And we're working on a podcast. So hopefully we'll have a podcast about the biological extraction of hydrogen from wells. But you can see Colorado is really sitting on a gold mine. I mean, all these blue dots are abandoned wells that are a liability on somebody's spreadsheet. And as a matter of fact, a lot of these need to be remediated so they don't leak and things. So you can imagine if we could convert these things to making pure, clean hydrogen, what a resource that would be, as well as the fact that these things are spread pretty broadly around the state. I mean, not so much in the mountains, but we're not going to have factories up in the mountains. But I actually checked, and the Rawhide, the Craig, and the Valmont power plants are within a mile of abandoned oil wells. And so it wouldn't take much to convert these, run a pretty cheap pipeline a mile or so to these power stations and run either a boiler or a turbine from hydrogen. And the boilers and the turbines are some things that I'm working on as one of the initiatives of the Colorado Hydrogen Network to see if we can find a project where we could convert a well and have a user that can offtake this hydrogen. The hydrogen's cheap. Proton Technologies has been talking for a long time. They think 30 cents a kilogram at the well. So that is down in the price range where you could actually use it for a gas turbine or a boiler, and it would actually be cheaper than natural gas. So a lot of exciting things about that. I've got some meetings coming up with Colorado Clean Tech as well as the Colorado Energy Collaboratory to talk about looking at doing a clean energy hub that could possibly incorporate something like this. So Elliot's got his hand up. Go ahead, Elliot.
I just was curious about what kind of volumetrics on a well by well basis have you come up with on that? Any ideas or?
Well, that's actually the kind of the catch is these wells, although they produce cheap hydrogen, say 30 cents a kilogram, it's a large volume, so it's tons a day. So, that'd be great for the Class 8 trucks, but right off the bat, you've got to have a user that's going to take that amount of hydrogen. So, our initial transportation type fueling stations are too spread out, and there's just not going to be enough of those. That's why I've been trying to focus on, say, a utility who has a big turbine who could take 10, 100 tons a day of hydrogen. You've got to make the source and the use scales kind of match.
Well, yeah, well, I guess my question is like one or two or five wells, or you're talking about like a whole field, or what are you talking about?
Well, I'm a little bit out of my element, but typically
Oh, I'm
there are
sorry.
multiple wells down into a reservoir, which actually
Right.
is a good thing because for like the proton technique, you need an injection well for the oxygen and another well to bring the hydrogen up. So if you've got a reservoir with multiple wells already in it, you may be good to go. There could be a lot of other details around that, but certainly you could develop a field to produce, have multiple wells that could produce off the same reservoir.
Primarily from oil, not natural gas.
This does work apparently with natural gas as well.
Okay. The reason, there's a high volume of high quantity of natural gas in this market. And then of course they need to move the gas to get the oil out. So, but like you're saying, abandoned wells, there's lots of small little fields, all over the
Yeah.
place. So like 3 to 5 well field might be, plenty enough for, what we're trying to accomplish, in the early stages anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. But the trick is to bring together a user that's going to take the quantity that you're going to generate, and then of course we'll need a chunk of change to develop these. But
Right.
if we could get some oil people interested, they usually have fairly deep pockets just because they're used to working on fairly large scale projects. But um, a lot of these wells, it's my understanding that just about every oil well ever drilled on the planet has got a substantial amount of the petroleum left in it, maybe half. I've heard things like that. It probably
Yeah.
depends on the well,
Yeah.
but they were no longer economical to produce oil because of water or other things. And water is great for this. You actually need water for the chemical reaction. So to me, this is just a gold mine sitting there, but it takes kind of a big project to get it started. Mike
We,
Grimwade's got his hand up. Go ahead,
I'm
Mike.
sorry.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I've got a cold. One of the thoughts, as you're kind of mentioning this, that I maybe haven't thought about previously or talked with you about is we're seeing a lot in um, my line of work of uh, these giant data centers and that are being built by like the Amazons and the Microsofts for AI and other data center purposes that are going out and trying to restart coal plants, or there's probably everyone saw in the news Three Mile Island recently trying to restart Three Mile Island. And so those companies are all very green conscious as well. And so I think it's kind of a battle they've been doing with their consciences of um, starting these gas plants or coal plants again to try to meet their needs for their businesses, but potentially be a use case there for coupling that with hydrogen co-firing with one of these geological or well hydrogen options to um, couple the technologies there. So just a
Right.
thought.
Mike, that is such a fantastic suggestion. I've been hearing things like some of these data centers want the amount of power that's produced by an entire power plant. I mean, it's just astronomical what they want. And
Yeah, I mean they've been coming to us looking for hundreds of megawatts basically. So
yeah.
I mean it's and they're in a pretty desperate spot right now. So they're willing to entertain things that the straight power market isn't. So
Yeah, well, you can see the number of wells here in Colorado. It's certainly easy to imagine that we could find a well at a convenient site for producing power, producing electricity, and co-locating the data center right there. Um, just the power generation isn't the least of it. I mean, you may have to run transmission lines, which you run into NIMBY problems on. So, yeah, Mike, maybe you and I should talk a little bit and see if we could run around and propose this to some of the data center folks, um, and maybe bring bring the oil folks along. And again, that's what I was talking about earlier when I said I want to work with Colorado Clean Tech Industries Association, with the Colorado Energy Collaboratory, to see if we can find a project like this where we can bring together the user, which in this case would be a data center, somebody who's got some old oil wells and maybe a little bit of money to convert those, and try to put a package together that's a little bit outside the box of what people have thought about. And Mike, here's a great example. I never thought about the data centers being a user for this. I was mainly thinking of power plants, but um, I love it. So. Yeah, well, that's what this call is all about, right? The the
Yeah,
networking,
Brian,
putting together.
these large centers use an incredible amount of cooling water as well. And it's something we look at as potentially a way of recovering clean energy with inline hydros. And then obviously you have the opportunity to excite electrolyzers as well as a green power source. So don't underestimate the size of these facilities and their use of water as another source of clean energy and potentially powering hydrogen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Frank. And for those, I know Frank, you've been on just about every call we've had for years now. But for those who don't know, your company recovers energy from basically water systems. And go ahead, Frank, give yourself a quick few second commercial here.
Yeah, it's all gravity fed. And so we've actually started looking at these data centers as well as targets so that they can recover some clean energy. And our systems range between as small as 5 kilowatts on a 4-inch diameter pipe, as big as a 36-inch pipe, and approximately 350, 360 kilowatt turbine. And they are very easily installed without a lot of permitting overhead because of the Hydropower Efficiency Act of 2013.
Ah, okay, great. Thanks, Frank. All right. Before we move off of the geologic hydrogen, any other comments or questions from anybody?
Ryan, just real quick, I sent you a quick message, but my partner, Dr. Afzal, that's exactly what he did with Schlumberger for over 35 years, is tracking all of that activity. And we've been working on a project in Michigan as well, that they're in working with the University of Michigan and Michigan State in that regard. So I think there would be a really great opportunity to collaborate there with what you're trying to accomplish here.
Okay.
So, and I'm sure that he'd be happy to open that door.
Well,
He's actively involved with them.
yeah, we ought to at least have a call and just kind of investigate
Yeah.
where to
Well, I
go with
think
it.
it's a great idea. We've got to figure out how to get hydrogen, costs way down, along with everything else. But once we can achieve that, then it makes it real.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you could do one well and one turbine that's kind of co-located, and that's using just pick a number, 10 tons of hydrogen a day, it's easy to see how we could pull a little bit off of that to use for transportation and other things. But the bulk of the CapEx is going to be covered by that first user.
Right, right. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
All right. All right. Good
Hey,
discussion. Don't want to cut
Brian,
anybody off though if
this
you have
is
some other thoughts.
Brian.
Yeah.
How mature are the two extraction technologies that you're talking about? It's one thing to be able to drill a hole and just pump and just like wait for the hydrogen to come out. That's pretty mature. But if we've got to do other things, how mature is that technology? Either the injection of oxygen or the injection of microbes. I mean, on a TRL scale, is this mature technology or is this still in the process of being invented?
Well, the microbes is new. The injection technique that Proton Technologies, and I guess their name has changed to Proton H2, they basically took mature techniques that were used in the oil industry and brought them together for a new purpose. And the analogy I used, which they've continued to use, I should have patented it, was it's like wheels on a suitcase, right? We've had suitcases forever. We've had the wheel for how many thousands of years, but it took till just recently for somebody to think, hey, we ought to put wheels on a suitcase. And they kind of did the same thing with the oil industry has injected oxygen. The oil industry has ways of filtering out the hydrogen and so forth, palladium filters and things like that. So, supposedly none of that's new. Protons had a well running up in near Calgary. It's not in Calgary, up in Canada for 3 or 4 years now. And they not only I mean, I guess to overstress it or whatever, they've been injecting air, which of course has nitrogen in it, and that's still been working pretty successfully. So that one I would say is fairly mature, although there, other than Proton's well up there, I don't know that anybody else has got a well that's actually been producing this way.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Franz, go ahead.
Yes, I joined late because there was a parallel meeting from the Globe Park. Lou Cordova from the State Energy Office was having a parallel meeting, giving updates on all the progress of the Globe Park, which is kind of the new building in front of NREL, where commercial companies that are working on project with NREL can get a place. And but during that meeting, there were about 100 people out of the Clean Tech Colorado. And one thing that she brought up at the end as on the public announcements was a kind of an open call for anyone in Colorado that is working on what she calls white hydrogen. So hydrogen, natural hydrogen in geographic formations. And this is, of course, little bit different, but certainly associated, I think, with that. And she was really asking to collect anyone that is working on something or has been working in that field in Colorado because they wanted to put a collaborative together on that. So I do think we should basically have a meeting with her and seeing who else she is working with and pulling some stuff together.
That's
So
fantastic.
it seemed to be kind of a good kind of coalescence there. Secondly, I wanted to, so if you look at, large uses, the easy way to use hydrogen is burn it in a gas turbine. We have a lot of gas turbines around the state and between the utilities, the main utilities, with Excel and then what is Tri-State and Black Hills. There's interest, but they're looking for projects and I did some work on pulling together some of these initiatives through the work for the Hydrogen Hub. So there's quite some opportunities, and we did a lot of mapping of where the opportunities are with existing gas turbines, where some of these utilities would be interested in mixing in hydrogen. So if we could zoom in an area where you would have a couple of these wells very close to proximity of natural gas turbine, the big thing is storage and transportation of hydrogen, independent of the production cost. So if you can eliminate these costs upfront by having a very strategic location, that could be very helpful. And I know there are several opportunities around the Colorado perimeter where we have looked at that in the last 2 years for the hydrogen hub. So,
well, Franz, I know you've been pretty busy with the company you've been working for, but it sounded like you might be stepping back from that. Might you have some time in the foreseeable future?
I absolutely. So I left that company, and I do have significant more time available to see if we can put some things together. So we can talk outside of the meeting, but I wanted to. It was interesting that this call just came in the last half hour, and I jumped in the meeting, and so I missed a couple of sheets of you, but certainly some opportunity to see if we can get more collaboratory together on this topic.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Mari Doby has left the collaboratory, and now Anya Richmond has taken over.
And she was in that meeting too.
Oh, she was in the meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the contact information from the lady who was speaking at this previous meeting by any chance, or could you get it?
Yeah, I got the contact information.
Okay.
So
All right.
it's easy to let know.
Why don't you and I coordinate and see how we want to reach out? But certainly we should at least let her know that the Colorado Hydrogen Network is here and our initiatives are to try to bring together some projects like this. And, a lot of these things cross disciplines. And so I find a lot of times people aren't aware of what's happening in the other disciplines, which is one of my motivations for trying to put together a clean energy hub. So, we had the idea of a hydrogen hub. That's great, but I really think we need to bring the other disciplines like oil and those kind of things into the conversation.
Yeah, and so in that meeting, also Laura and Mary Austin from CCIA were there. Okay. And Laura announced she is ready to start kind of roundtables around hydrogen and a separate round of roundtables on geothermal. So there's a couple of things where we can combine things, I think, to say, hey, can we start pulling some of these things together?
Yeah.
So we'll certainly talk, Brian. I will probably give you tomorrow a call and see what we can do there.
Yeah. tomorrow I'm going to be in some medical procedures for quite a few hours. So I don't know, shoot for maybe Thursday or Friday. We'll talk.
That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
just shoot me otherwise an email with some availability.
Yeah, yeah. But I really see this as the biggest function of the Colorado Hydrogen Network is to try to bring together all of the players, whether it's supply or use or transport, pipeline, whatever, and try to bring these people to the table and say, hey, you've all got different pieces of the puzzle. Let's put it all together into one puzzle. So, all right, enough said. All right. So I did want to talk just a little bit about thinking ahead to Hydrogen Day in 2025. And we had a really successful event, except for the fact that I was a little disappointed we weren't just mobbed with people. I was hoping to get a lot more people there, but with the public, I think we need to do more advertising next year. Maybe we can come up with some corporate sponsorship that'll help to fund that. Had a little bit of luck with some of the TV stations. They did Channel 7 did a feature for us, which was kind of nice, but want to work that a little bit more next year. See if maybe we could do a billboard or some kind of ad in maybe the Denver Business Journal or something like that. We made a pretty good stab at social media, and thanks to Brendan Donor for helping set up Google Ads. We had a lot of activity on that, and I think that brought a few people in. But if any of you, I know this is about a year away, but if you have points of contact within any of these things that could help open the door, the Colorado Hydrogen Network is a nonprofit, so trying to play that card maybe with some of these folks to get some reduced cost on some advertising, that would be good. We'll try to do a little bit better job of getting on some calendars and some mailing lists. I don't think we had anything in particular on CCIA, but Colorado Renewable Energy Society, CRES, I did reach out to them. They hadn't responded. But maybe to try to develop some relationships with the environmental groups like Sierra Club or Protect Our Winters, POW, some of those to try to get them to leverage their group of stakeholders to show up for something like this. Another idea, and I'm going a little fast here, but maybe if we have some other event attractions. We didn't do a ride and drive this year, but maybe we could do that in the future. Did do a raffle. And if anybody knows of a celebrity that might draw people in, let me know. We could do that. So, one other thought that I had for next year would be to do some lectures. We didn't do that this year, but that could help to draw in some of the hydrogen stakeholders if we have some speakers. So I think we'll probably do that in 2025. Either the topic could be a draw for people or even the reputation of the presenter themselves. And then I'm really keen to try to get the legislators out. Invited them this year. Nobody did take us up on it. But if we could get possibly the governor or Will Tour to attend next year, and I'll try to work that a little bit more than I did this past year to get that to happen. And then I'd also like to look at we didn't have any of the vehicle folks there. I've started building a relationship with the folks at Honda, so maybe they would be there, and be great if they'd bring their hybrid fuel cell CRV. Toyota, Hyundai, Ford, have been talking with Ford about their F550 fuel cell vehicle. And I know some of the folks like New Day has got a pretty good relationship with some of the vehicle folks. So maybe we can get some vehicle things there as well. All right. So I mentioned early on that I wanted to have a little bit of a poll here because we've had a little bit of a discussion about, do we have this on Saturday or Sunday? I know the official Hydrogen Day can land on a weekday, which I didn't think would bring out the public as well. So I was kind of keen to have it on a weekend. This year, the venue was only available on Sunday, so we couldn't have done it on Saturday. But working this far in advance, we could do either day. Now, I've got some pros and cons shown here. Assuming we have it at the Hydro Building again, which was a great venue, there are things happening on campus on Saturday. So we'd be competing a little bit for parking. I don't know about family activities on Saturdays. I assume people have ball games, and they want to do some work on the house and things on a Saturday. Maybe families are more likely to come on a Sunday. I don't know, but I'm gonna ask you all to vote on this in a second here. Um, and then I guess the other one is we weren't able to get the cafe at the Hydro Building on a Sunday, so we had to have a food truck came in. That ended up being a little bit more expensive than I wanted it to be. So let me give you all the opportunity. See if I can make this poll work. I tried this earlier. So all right, um, are you all seeing a poll on your screen? Go ahead and vote for which day of the week, and do you think is a better day for this? Well, I should have some music playing in the background here. And by the way, this is basically the last thing I've got other than looking at the uh, podcast stats. So a lot of Saturdays, and that kind of reflects what I was seeing from people I talked to. So um, I think we'll consider Saturday. Maybe I'll go down to the uh, Spur campus a few times on a Saturday just to see how busy they do get on Saturdays. But uh, all right, that looks like that's a better day. So all right, thank you all for doing that. I'm going to end that poll and share results. I don't. I guess did a window pop up where you can all see the results?
It's in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll leave that up. So just one last thing. Initially was doing the podcast every other week and I just couldn't keep that cadence up. So they've been a little bit sparse, but I did release, and some of you may have already heard it, a recording of actually 4 different companies that were at this so-called Hydrogen Mountain Retreat that CERAD had up in Boulder. It's the last day of September, first day of October this year, and recorded live at that event. 4 companies, which is I thought were pretty interesting interviews. So encourage you all to tune that in. And I've got another podcast that's in work right now. We haven't recorded it yet, but it will be about the using microbes to free hydrogen from petroleum wells, and that's with a company called Gold Hydrogen. So be watching for that podcast. Hopefully, within a couple of weeks, that'll be coming out. So we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. That was all I had. 2 minutes left, actually. Any last comments or questions from anybody?
I had a quick question for Franz. Did you mention Mary Austin is back at CCIA?
Yes, she's back at CCIA.
So she left. So she left NREL.
Yeah, she left NREL and she's back there. She feels way more happy at CCIA, she said.
Yeah, great. Well, I'll catch up to her again. Thanks.
All right. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Really appreciate it. And we'll all see you next month.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
You bet.